eventually you get absorbed in and you are Sonic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to No Repeat. It's a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every year. I'm Taylor Olmstead, and I'm joined in this end-of-year celebration episode with my co-hosts, Tyler Reed.
Folks, little spoiler alert, we're not picking any of the songs from the Wonka musical.
And Shaun Evans.
Or the Wonka movie.
But we are picking our favorite songs of 2023. This is always a big episode for us. It's the last episode we do each year, and we each get to pick one song that we feel is in some way representative of the year. It doesn't have to be your favorite song of the year. It doesn't have to be a popular song from the year. It just has to have been released within the year. And that's really kind of it. We'll use it to talk about larger trends in the music industry. I'm sure we'll do a preambles discussion about kind of where things have been. But I wanted to quickly recap the last couple of years just to give people an idea.
And see if Shaun remembered his.
Yep. That's also the fun part about this segment. Shaun, do you remember what you picked for 2022?
This is probably an Always song.
You're right. It was Bored in Bristol by Always.
I remember because I was mad about Tyler's dating life.
And then I picked Bad Habit by Steve Lacy, and Tyler picked Teeth Marks by S.G. Goodman. Then for 2021,
Dark Horse that week or that year.
Do you know what you picked for 2021, Shaun?
Absolutely not.
You picked Chaise Long by Wet Leg. Tyler
Correct.
picked What I Need by Pearl Charles, and I picked Serotonin by Girl in Red.
Still stand by that.
Yeah, I think those are all great picks. Then we get to some weird ones for 2020, weird songs for a weird year. We had Big Bunny by Alaska Reed, For Sure by Future Islands, and Love Me Better by Joan. I think 3 years in a row there, we went in the same order. Yeah, pretty much. We went Shaun, Tyler, me. That's weird. And then, truly the banner year for this episode, our first one that we did, 2019, the picks were Old Town Road, Truth Hurts, and Party for One.
Oh, yeah. Hot.
So,
Carly.
some years it's really poppy, and some years it's obscure indie stuff, and it's just what's been representative to us. So now I turn the floor over to you guys. What was your year like? What were you listening to? What were your, favorite sounds, favorite albums? This is kind of your chance to just opening statement. How was music this year for you?
So I feel like at the end of 2022, I was doing a lot of sort of country and folk stuff. And so I feel like that carried a little bit into 2023, but I feel like this year kind of ended up being a lot of really high potential albums that didn't necessarily live up to my expectations. And so I really found myself sort of defaulting back to a lot of sort of classics or sort of other sort of sounds that I kind of was already kind of messing with. And what sort of evolved from that was as the year kind of went on, it really did sort of seem like this was a year for rock and roll. Rock and roll was kind of making a comeback in a big way. And I feel sort of alternative and indie stuff, sort of like last year, Always had put out a pretty good album, and I feel like lots of people were talking about that. And I feel like there was probably some other big rock albums that probably had come out. But this year felt like there was just no shortage of cool and interesting sort of rock adjacent albums that were just a little bit more straight up, and it feels good. It feels good to say that I feel like rock and roll came back in a really big way, and I feel like it hasn't been that way in a little bit. it's been very electronic, been very poppy, and so I feel like this has kind of been one of the first years in a while that's felt this way. So, I mean, I'm feeling like I don't know if I'll ever be able to kind of come back to that space, if I'll ever really appeal to me, but I feel like it's managed to do pretty well this year.
Oh man. Well, Spotify recap told me that I was really into one thing in particular, which was Always. It's going to shock everybody who's listening to this podcast. And the other one, it told me too that I was really into hardcore punk, which is kind of right, depending on the time of the year. And metal. Deftones also got a good read. It's making me feel like I don't listen to new music, but if you listen to this show, you know that's not true. I just know what I like to listen to when I'm going to work, which is a little shocking. That was kind of my year. Lots of the same, but iterations of it, hopefully in a new way.
I feel like I was kind of all over the place this year. I mean, my top artists are a lot of familiar faces, but then when you get down into songs and albums, there's a lot of variance. Like, just looking at my top 5, I've got indie singer-songwriter, I've got kind of a city pop song, I've got electronic dance music, got indie rock, true Brit pop, pop rock. I mean, there's a little bit of everything in there. R&B, I don't know. I feel like it was one of those years where I was really picking up a lot of new artists and a lot of new albums, and a lot of artists I came out with albums this year that were really good, that got me really excited. I mean, I have 52 plays of Scaring the Hose alone.
Yeah, makes
which,
sense.
That was one of my favorite records of the year by far. The Caroline Polachek, 53 plays. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a lot of disparate things, other than those really heavy hitters. It was a lot of onesie twosie album from a band I've never heard of, or something that seems to be getting talked up online. I'll give it a listen and kind of forget about it after a few weeks, type of thing. I went back to the Military Gun record a couple weeks ago because it was put on a bunch of best of lists, and it's a good record. It's a good punk record, but it wasn't something that I really remembered from this year. And I think to Tyler's point, there was a real rock comeback this year, and I feel like there were a lot of high profile rock and rock adjacent releases, which helped because that's a little more my lane. But yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of a weird one for me.
So similar to you, my tops. If I picked out the artist that specifically had new albums released this year, in terms of my tops for this year, is Caroline Polachek, which with 259 Scrabbles. So that album had me by a chokehold. The new Paramore, Margot Price, which is more of a country rock album, and then Bully, and then Bug Moment was also on there. Listened to that a lot. And then Geese, Wednesday. So yeah, it felt I feel like a lot of artists, kind of a mix between artists that are staples and then sort of newer artists.
Well, I think we should just go ahead and hop in to these songs, because I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about them since they are our favorites for the year. So anybody feel strongly about going first?
Oh yeah, let's keep the tradition going.
Get in there, Shaun. What you got for us?
So this year I chose That Life by Unknown Mortal Orchestra.
Why is it always crying, quarreling, filtering through the malaise? I can hear someone running their mouth and the neighbors will call the police. And here we go. Oh, 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 that life. That life. That life.
Well, first thing, I haven't talked about this song on this podcast or on Billy Joe, with the explicit understanding that this is probably my top song for the entire year on YouTube and not on Spotify. I'm keeping it a secret because I wanted to pick it. I didn't want any of you guys to get it for me. But I absolutely love this song. I love this music video. I listen to this song probably 3 times every time we record.
Oh.
It's that good. I absolutely love it. This album is very good. The song gets me in the mood every time. I like that it's a very developed Unknown Mortal Orchestra song. I appreciate that it's a very approachable Unknown Mortal Orchestra song for a band that can often be kind of not that approachable by pop music listeners. And it still has that beautiful Unknown Mortal Orchestra sensibility of that lo-fi grittiness and lyrics that are kind of kooky. So, by far, this is my song of the year. Just great.
Yeah, this is, like you said, a really approachable track for this band that can sometimes be a bit much for people. It almost reminds me of like Ginger Root, who we've picked in the past.
Ooh, yeah.
Like that kind of like funk influenced bedroom pop situation. And I think it's cool that Unknown Mortal Orchestra has found ways to stay relevant over, 10, 20 years. I don't know how long that band's been around, but it's been a long time. And, to hear a new song from them that feels like them, but also feels so 2023 is really nice. And yeah, I think it's a fun, unique kind of art rock song. Like it has this kind of kooky groove to it, this really fun like piano and organ melody that just doesn't really like feel like anything else that I've heard this year. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, oh wow, like this is just, it's kind of on its own plane over here. Like it's clearly playing in the space, but they're on some new stuff over here. I like this. This is good.
Yeah, it really does feel like it's not necessarily a different band or a different construction. It feels like it's using all the same tools, but using it in a slightly different way. It sort of feels like it's sort of in the same way, like if you really like dig into sort of like the differences between like the different Always albums, which Shaun reference. It's like the subtle shifts in sort of like the production style. Like it feels like and this in particular feels like there is a stronger focus on putting the vocals like further up kind of in the mix to make it be more vocal centric, because I feel like a lot of their other songs feels like it's maybe everything kind of like meshes together really nicely. Like it feels like everything's a little bit sort of like kind of like the lyrics and the vocals are more of like a part of the soundscape, where this feels like a very, very vocal forward, vocal first song. But that doesn't mean that it's not then supported by a really cool sound kind of in the back. Because this is still like that same sort of like really like avant-garde sort of like composition in terms of like the sounds that they're creating. Like lots of like reverse or like reverb. There's like really particular sort of sounds that we expect from Unknown Mortal Orchestra. But it just feels like cleaner, like a little bit more simple. Feels a little bit like there's a good like clarity. That's kind of like, that feels like the word that I feel like is what I'm thinking of the song. It's like it takes all those sort of components and just sort of like strips it down and doesn't necessarily take away from like what makes them good. It just sort of like maybe makes it a little bit more approachable to like an audience that isn't quite prepared for a much more like psychedelic experience, right? This is a little bit closer to what they might one experience, and also just like kind of feels good. It's a nice feeling song. I like it. It's a good vibe. I can only assume that the lyrical content meshes with the music video, in which it's a song that sort of sounds kind of happy, but it's actually a little sad. But yeah, I think this is a cool pick. It was not what I would expect out of Shaun's song of the year, but it's good. It's good. Maybe I didn't expect it because he kept it under wraps the entire time.
Keeping secrets.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, your song was not a secret. What'd you pick?
This week I chose Cowboy Dudes by Geese.
Be my warrior, my loving light. Be my warrior, don't be alright. Be my warrior, just you and I. Be my warrior, and I'll
Oh boy. So I feel like this song really snuck up on me when it first sort of like came out. They released it as a single before the full album release, and it had ended up just kind of playing a lot, just sort of like on the music I like after albums I was just kind of listening to, and so it sort of like snuck up on me as to its into what makes it special, right? And you're like, oh, well, maybe this is old. Maybe this is, like, I feel like it's very unassuming. I feel like maybe, like, on first listen. But when this album finally came out, I really kind of, like digested it and really kind of got a good look at it. And I think what this does is it gives a good... I feel like this is really my thesis for, like, rock is back, baby. Like, because I think what this does is it sort of almost has sort of, like, the jangliness of, like, the Stones, but it has a lot of, like, modern sensibilities. Has a little bit of that hard sort of, like, punch of, like, alt rock or, like, a little bit of, like, a little bit more, like, hardcore stuff. Maybe not necessarily in this song, but, like this album as a whole has a little bit more of it kind of goes through a different kind of modes and kind of different kind of zones. But I think what I love most about the song is that it just feels like carefree, feels like a vibe, feels effortless. I feel like everyone's just sort of like just doing their thing, and it just flows so nice and smooth, and it feels almost like you're in the middle of like a jam session, right? Like they're just like kind of just going with the vibe here. And I feel like that really lends itself in like when you listen to like sort of like the chorus where it's just like they're just sort of like riffing on hold on, let me grab it real quick. The chicka cha, and then like just doing the ad lib of the New York City just sort of feels like makes it just feel like whatever, we're just hanging out. This is just casual. But I think it just feels unapologetically cool, and I'm really into it.
This is a disturbing music video. Picked a weird music video.
Yeah, I would have just posted the song without the video if I were you.
Yeah. Well,
But I'm with you. I also really loved this record this year. And I think it's a great example of how rock music can make a comeback and be inventive and interesting in the 2020s. Like, this song is inflected with like country rock and post-punk and a little bit of dance rock. Like, it's got a lot of influences here, and they come together in a sound that, like, it blew me away the first time I heard it. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Especially because I really liked their previous record, which was just kind of a dark post-punk record. Like, it didn't have any of this country twinge to it. It didn't have this jam session feeling. It was much more like almost goth rock. And to like take such a hard left turn and do it so well is really impressive. And this is a song that I've had stuck in my head all year. There's something so fun about the yelling New York City in the gang vocals that it's just like...
That it goes into a little bongo solo. Just go crazy.
Yeah, it's super fun. I really dig this track. Well done.
I think the cross between this like party folk thing is a little weird for me. It's not my brand, but I see it. I'm here for it.
Whoa, Shaun's not into it.
I'm not. Listen, I like my hey ho different than my hey ya. Okay, I don't take them in the same place. It's just my feeling. It's not a bad song.
Whoa.
I don't.
I felt in my bones
that you'd be into it.
That's you'd be into it. That's I don't know. I just That was not the take I was expecting, but I respect it.
See, I like hi-fi folk, which you would think would be a thing here, but maybe we should just have a whole episode where we just go down all the subgenres of folk that have popped up in the past 10 years.
Maybe. I mean, I feel like this is pretty far from folk, but...
Is it, though? I like it, though. It's a good time.
Couldn't tell from your discussion there.
No.
Hey. Just let it go. Let it
All right, fine. Fine. You know what? We're going to talk about my song, then.
Oh.
If you're going to be that way.
Oh.
This week, I done went and did it. I picked the one that's on everybody's thoughts, minds, and hearts. Not Strong Enough by Boy Genius.
Don't know why I am the way I am. Not strong enough to be your man. I tried, I can't stop staring at the ceiling fan and spinning out about things that haven't happened. Breathing.
Easily my most played song of the year. Like, by almost double the next song below it. I just adore the Boy Genius album. I think it's probably the best thing that all three members, Lucy Dacus, Phoebe Bridgers, and Julian Baker, have all done so far. It's such a great piece of work, such a great collection of songs. And this feels like kind of the thesis statement of the album. It's this like 70s and 90s influenced singer-songwriter pop rock. But because they're this like super group, you get this situation where they trade off on the verses and then they do this beautiful 3-part harmony on the chorus. And then the bridge is just so cool with the chanting, always an angel, never a god. It's so cool to hear them all come in and start to harmonize and then break apart and do counter melodies. And like, it's just such a perfectly crafted song. You could tell that they really labored over every part of it. And watching them perform it on SNL a couple weeks ago was awesome because they really, like, you can tell that they just love performing together. Like, they're really good friends and they really like doing this. And I'm so happy for all the success that they've had with this record because they deserve it. Like, they're three incredibly talented women and they made a great piece of art here.
Did everybody pick a folk song this year besides me for their...
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Folk's really having it's having a good time right now, which is why I moved on. Because I feel like, okay, great, you guys like it, you're on trend, which is good for you, but you need to be ahead of the trend. You need to be what us post-school people call.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry about it. You'll know it in a couple years.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a little way, and like I like what you said about the what decades was it that you referenced?
The 70s and the 90s.
70s and 90s.
Yeah.
This feels like a very. We're gonna lose somebody for me saying this out loud, but I'm gonna say it. This sounds like a John Mellencamp cover.
Ooh, yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at Tyler's face. Ooh, you can't say that.
It's a
And I'm like,
John
well, yeah, it
Mellencamp
feels like it was
cover.
very influenced by that. It's very
does.
different. And I appreciate it for that. So that's how I'm gonna say it. But if you like this, you're probably on the cusp of indie music for the past year, and I don't know. Acoustic guitar has really come back.
Yeah.
I mean, Taylor Swift and Boy Genius did for acoustic guitar what Disney tried to do with Coco 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's really acoustic singer-songwriter lady season. They are eating.
How do I feel about this? I love Lucy Dacus. Specifically. Maybe not her newest stuff, but we all gotta talk about that. But it feels like something I should like, that I should love, and I don't hate it. I just feel, I listen to it and I feel nothing. Like, I understand why it pulls people so strongly, and I understand why it's significant, but it's the lyrics, right? Like, it's got to be like, it feels like the lyrics like touch you specifically. Yeah.
I think a little bit. I think there is something about like this wanting to be stronger than you are and wanting to be stronger for someone else that I like. But I think it also is just kind of like, to Shaun's point, it touches me in the way that like Traveling Wilburys touches me, or like
Right.
some of the janglier Bruce Springsteen stuff. Like, it just feels classic and comforting.
Yeah. And it does feel comforting. And I agree that there is sort of like, you're right, this is a formula that has been explored before, and it feels like hasn't been explored in this particular way, of course. But sort of like the super group, and it's very much a focus on sort of like their vocal harmonies and sort of like their lyrics and sort of like what it's about. I guess maybe in some ways it's just like I'm like trying to like understand why I'm don't get anything from it. Like, I want to like appreciate it, and it's wild, because like I feel like I listened to this album the first time and I was just like, this is fine. Like, is it because it needs to have more of like, am I such a pedestrian music listener that it's like, well, it needs to have like a more concrete chorus, like a more like a tighter like sort of like guitar riff that sort of like ties everything together. Like, I just don't understand why I don't, what doesn't strike me about it. But like, it's obviously beautiful, like, and it's obviously like great, but I just don't find myself pulled to really try to like revisit it. But like, I'm trying to get into it, but I mean, like, I don't know, I think this is not me pee poo pooing, you know, it literally sounds like that. I think of anything, I am wanting to understand. And I feel like I owe it to myself to like give this like another listen and another shot. Because it's your album of the year. Album or just song of the year? Both.
Probably both.
Probably both. And it's a lot of people's probably album of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting album of the year on a ton of lists.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna figure it out one way or another.
I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to love something just because everybody else loves it. But it is, in my opinion, a great record.
I think that's the difference between Shaun's opinion and mine's opinion, where Shaun says, I've listened to it and I don't like it. And I'm saying I listened to it and I think there's something there. It's maybe just I'm not reading it correctly. Maybe I'm not. I need something to help me understand. I mean, I'm getting there.
Yeah, but have you ever tried blaming the artist?
No. I'm non-confrontational.
Oh, okay.
And I will always put myself as the problem to every issue, regardless if it was my fault or not. So Shaun, I think that's the difference between you and I, is that I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah, no, my therapist said blame others and then fix yourself later.
Yeah, that's what they say. Very healthy. Very healthy.
All right. Well, speaking of blaming others, listener submissions, we got one. Don't blame yourself, Tyler. It's not your fault.
I always do.
24 hours, and we just didn't get it. You know, you got a whole year to think of the song you want us to read on here, and you didn't do it.
You would say it would be easy, right? Like, I feel like we shotgunned these songs in pretty quickly. It was not hard. You know what your favorite song is that you listen to all year.
Right. What better things do you have to do on a Saturday night and Sunday morning that you couldn't even type in a dialogue box? What's my song of the year?
Wow, you really are. Your therapist really did say blame people.
That's what I mean. It's just she said, Shaun, you're perfect. Just keep going. People that didn't hurt us this year. At 71 DPI picked Billy Knows Jamie by 100 Gex.
You little freak.
I mean, that 100 Gex album sure did come out this year.
Saw a billboard of that album. Please vote for us for the Grammys.
For your consideration, FYC.
All right, and with that, it's time for our B-sides. These are songs that were very close to being Song of the Year but didn't quite make it. Or they've just been laying the whole year out here, and we just have put them on the playlist. But yeah, whatever. Okay, go for it.
I shot from the hip. I knew exactly what I wanted the whole time.
He knew.
I knew too. I knew it. I'm planning this for 6 months.
I mean, I texted the chat, but I was also strongly considering most songs from the Caroline Polachek album.
That's fair.
We had already picked way too many Paramore songs, but I mean, like, this is why it probably would have been good. Probably been a big pick. Yeah, I kind of knew in my heart.
The first time I listened to you, I knew that.
Well, Tyler, if people want to look back on the year with you, where can they do that?
Hey everybody, you can find me design illustration work at rudepets.club, and as always, you can find me on the socials as Rude Pets Club on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter.
Shaun, if they want to figure out what's post-cool with you, where can they do that?
You can find me on Instagram, because Instagram will come back before it's gone. And you can find me on Instagram at TellyShaun. And as Mew said, time is running out. But if you've got lots of it, talk to Taylor at... Where's they find you at, Taylor?
TC Olmstead on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter. All of these songs will be on the official Nerd Repeat Podcast playlist, which is maintained on Apple Music and Spotify. We'll be back next week with some new bands for you to look for in 2024.